Good afternoon to all. Myself, Dr. Vandana Admane, lecturer, Medicine Department. Today we are discussing clinical management of COVID-19. First of all, the most common symptom in COVID patient is fever, dry cough and fatigue. And others are loss of taste, nasal congestion, conjunctivitis, sore throat, headache, muscles or joint pain, skin rash, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, chills and dizziness. And in severe cases of COVID-19, the symptoms were shortness of breath, loss of appetite, confusion, persistence of pain, pressure in the chest, high temperature. The less common symptoms are irritability, seizures, stroke, delirium, nerve damage, anxiety, depression, sleep disorders, brain inflammation and reduced level of consciousness. This is a diagram showing the involvement of various organs in COVID-19. There are 5 pathological mechanisms that are implicated in COVID-19. First, the spike proteins that interacts with the angiotensin converting enzyme 2, they cause the direct cytotoxicity. And second is when that is spike protein when interacts with the angiotensin 2, it causes the down regulation of the angiotensin converting down regulation of renin-angiotensin, and there is a dysregulation of renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system and excessive production of pro-inflammatory cytokines, and there is a coagulation cascades activation. There is activation of coagulation cascade, formation of thrombus, and there is a muscle necrosis. So all these organs are involved. In vessels, there is a permeability is increased, coagulation activation, microcirculation disturbances are there. In heart, there is a edema, atrophy of muscle fibers, inflammatory infiltrates are there. In muscles, there is a myofiber necrosis, atrophy is there. In islet cell, there is a inflammation and islet cell damage. In liver, there is a cholangiocytes damage is there. In lungs, there is a extensive edema, hyaline membrane formation, microthrombi formation are there, inflammatory infiltrate and organization and fibrosis there. In brain, there is a edema and degeneration of neuron occurs. Who are at the risk of SARS-CoV-2? The patient more than 60 years of age, diabetic, hypertensive with heart disease, they have underlying lung problems, obesity and cancers. The comorbidities are associated with the severity of illness in COVID, and there is an increased mortality. The most common is heart disease, second is diabetes, central nervous system, and fourth is a pulmonary involvement. The patients having underlying cardiovascular condition, they are at the more risk of severe COVID-19 course than other patients. This is the schematic representation of COVID-19 infection. There are 2 stages, early stage and severe stage. Early stage is a normal immune response to any viral infection. So, normal immune response, there is a activation of the T cells and release of interleukins and cytokines. But in severe stages, there is a inflammation damaging there due to excessive production of pro-inflammatory cytokines and chemokines. The chest, this is the CT findings classically showing the GG opacities. This is already covered by the radiologist. And the diagnosis by RT-PCR, rapid antigen test, failure test and antibody test. This is the diagram. This is a slide showing the serological testing. It helps the retrospective determine the size of an outbreak or extent of infection in population under the study. It also captures the unrecognized cases that are not identified through the routine or active surveillance. There are 3 stages of COVID-19. First is mild, that is early infection. They are graded as ABC. And the stage 2 is divided into stage 2A, that is moderate, pulmonary involvement without hypoxia, that is grade D. And stage 2B is moderate, pulmonary involvement with hypoxia, that is grade E. And stage 3 is severe pulmonary involvement with hypoxia with septic shock, MODS, that is grade F. These are the biomarkers that we routinely do in COVID patient, that is CBC, complete blood count, C-reactive protein, LDH, serum ferritin, interleukin 6, CPK, myoglobin, D-dimer, cardiac troponins, CPK, increased procalcitonin, renal biomarkers, that is urea and creatinine. This is a new scoring system. It is used on admission to assess the patient with to assess the severity of the illness and in hospital mortality. And the various parameters are there in new scoring system like respiration, O2 saturation, blood pressure, pulse, consciousness, level of consciousness and temperature. And they are scored from 0 to 3. If the score is between 0 to 4, that is low risk, patient can be managed in ward. If the score is 3, then low to medium, urgent ward-based response is there. If 5 to 6, that is medium clinical risk is there, patient required urgent response. And if the score is more than 7, that is high, emergency response is there. COVID specific therapy, the COVID in treatment, there is a supportive care, remdesivir, these are the drugs used, remdesivir, HCQS, lopinavir, ritonavir. Interferons regime, they have a little or no effect on 28 days mortality on in hospital course of the disease. Oxygen for severely ill patient, steroids, antibiotics, they do not work against the viruses, but they are used to prevent or treat the secondary infection in severely ill patient. We usually do the 6-minute walk test. This is established clinical test to look for cardiopulmonary exercise tolerance. American Thoracic Society recommends its use for prediction of mortality and morbidity in heart failure patients, COPD, and primary pulmonary hypertension. Patient with a pulse oximeter attached to its finger is asked to walk in the confines of his room. Any drop in saturation below the 93 or an absolute drop of more than 3% or feeling unwell, that is lightheaded, short of breath while performing the test, they are significant findings. This test is used to unmask the hypoxia. The patient with positive 6-minute walk test may progress to become a hypoxic, hence early intervention in the form of admission to hospital or shifting to ICU or giving oxygenation or or steroids is recommended. 6 minutes may be the cut short for the 3 minutes in patient above the 60 years of age. The specific therapy includes remdesivir, favipiravir, convalescent plasma and IL-6 pathway inhibitors. The remdesivir, it is a novel nucleotide analogs. The indication for use of remdesivir is duration of illness less than 10 days. Pneumonia is there on X-ray. Oxygen saturation is less than or equal to 94% of room air or requiring supplemental oxygen. Patient requires a mechanical ventilation or ECMO. The dose is 200 mg IV on a day 1 followed by 100 mg daily for 5 days. It may be extended to 10 days total. The contraindication for use of remdesivir is when the liver enzymes ALT and AST is more than upper limit of normal. Severe renal impairment is there. eGFR is less than 30 ml per minute per meter square or need for hemodialysis. Pregnancy and lactating females, children less than 12 years of age. Remdesivir has a limited water solubility. So potential toxicity in patient with the kidney disease related both to remdesivir action and to potential accumulation of its sulfobutyl ethyl B-cyclodextrin carrier. This is an article published in New England Journal, Remdesivir for the treatment of COVID-19, Act 1 trial. It is a double-blind randomized placebo-controlled trial of intravenous remdesivir in patients. They have given trial in 1062 patients who were hospitalized with COVID-19 and had evidence of lower respiratory tract infection. The primary outcome was time to recovery defined by either discharge from hospital or hospitalization for infection control purpose only. The data showed that remdesivir was superior to the placebo in shortening recovery time to recovery in adults who have evidence of LRTI, that is lower respiratory tract infection. In preliminary subgroup analysis of Act 1, there was no observed benefit for remdesivir in people with COVID who did not require supplemental oxygen. Second is steroid. Patients, there is a reduced mortality by 1/3 in patient on ventilator and reduced mortality by 1/5 in patient on oxygenation. There is a recovery trial for steroids. Dexamethasone was administered as an oral or IV preparation at the dose of 6 mg OD dose for 10 days. Recommendation by WHO, it strongly recommended steroids, dexamethasone, hydrocot or prednisolone to be given orally or IV for the treatment of patient with severe and critical COVID. WHO advised against the use of steroid in treatment of patient with non-severe COVID-19 unless the patient is already taking this medication for another condition. And duration of treatment is 7 to 10 days. The dose is of steroids 6 milligram dexamethasone, 160 milligram of hydrocod, that is 50 milligram every 8 hourly or 100 milligram 12 hourly, 40 milligram prednisolone. This is equivalent dose of dexamethasone, hydrocod, prednisolone and methylprednisolone, and 32 milligram of methylprednisolone. The panel expert made its recommendation on the basis of its moderate certainty evidence of mortality reduction is 8.7% and 6.7% in patients with COVID-19 who are critically or severely ill. This diagram shows, this is a presentation, the patient who was receiving methylpred, they have a better survival than who do not receive the methylpred. Third is treatment of thrombosis, that is coagulation defect which occurs in COVID-19 patient. The coagulation dysfunction appears to be common in COVID-19 as detected by elevated D-dimer. Pulmonary embolism was the most frequent thromboembolic complication. It is observed in 16.7% of the patient with COVID-19 ARDS, whereas it was found 1.3% in non-COVID ARDS patient. Diffuse microvascular thrombosis suggesting thrombotic microangiopathy, and most deaths from the COVID-19 ARDS have evidence of thrombotic DIC. This may explain some of the atypical or unexpected manifestations seen in the lungs, such as dilated pulmonary vessel on CT chest and episodes of pleuritic pain. Vascular enlargement is rarely reported in unusual ARDS, yet was seen in most of the cases of COVID-19 ARDS. Low molecular weight heparin is recommended for all hospital COVID-19 patients belonging to category 1C and above. Treatment is indicated with a full dose of low molecular weight heparin according to the weight 1 mg per kg but not more than 40 when the D-dimer is raised. Low molecular weight is given if the coagulation tests are abnormal, that is prolonged PT or APTT. Abnormal PT or APTT is not a contraindication for low molecular weight heparin. This is a long-term anticoagulation was advised on discharge. Patient with a low risk, that is D-dimer is normal, less than the twice normal. No risk factor is there, no anticoagulation is required. Encourage them to stay active. In intermediate risk, when the D-dimer is more than twice the normal on discharge, no risk factor, consider aspirin 81 mg OD and encourage patient to stay active. In high risk patient, when the D-dimer is more than twice the normal and patient is additionally having immobility, prior venous thromboembolism history, hormone, patient is using hormone, obesity is there, history of cancer, then consider the following for 6 weeks, that is enoxaparin 40 mg daily, apixaban 2.5 mg OD or rivaroxaban 10 mg OD. Follow in 4 to 6 weeks to determine the need for anticoagulation. Low molecular weight, that is prophylactically enoxaparin is used 40 mg OD. In therapeutic 40 mg BD dose is recommended. Unfractionated heparin if the renal parameters are severely deranged or low molecular weight is not available. Unfractionated heparins 10,000 unit IV stat followed by the 5,000 6 hourly with a clotting control. In patient who had a COVID associated coagulopathy who is actively bleeding, transfuse the platelet if the platelet count is less than 40,000. 4 units of FFP if the INR is above 1.8. Cryoprecipitate 10 units if the fibrinogen is less than 1.5 gram per liter. Severe coagulopathy and bleeding due to liver dysfunction is there. 4-factor prothrombin complex concentrate is preferred instead of plasma. Then fourth is convalescent plasma in COVID-19 patient. PLACID trial is there. It is a passive immunotherapy. It may be used in early viral phase when the antiviral drugs by virtue of deranged kidney and liver function are contraindicated. It did not lead the reduction in progression to severe disease or all-cause mortality. These are the who is a potential donor to give the plasma and who is a potential recipient. Who can donate? The main woman who never been pregnant, age is 18 to 65 years, approximately body weight is more than 50 kg, and patient who is having who is COVID RT-PCR positive after 14 days of symptom resolution. The screening should be ruled out to avoid the ABO incompatibility and bloodborne pathogens. The required concentration of IgG antibody against COVID-19 titer is 1:640 or neutralizing antibody titer is 1:80. Who is a potential recipient in early stages of COVID-19 disease? 3 to 7 from the days of onset of symptoms, but not later than 10 days. No IgG antibody against the COVID-19 by appropriate test, and informed consent is required. So favipiravir, it is a RNA polymerase inhibitor. It offers rapid reduction in viral load within 4 days and provide a faster symptomatic and radiological improvement. It is indicated in mild to moderate disease, can be used in patients with the comorbidities like diabetes and heart disease. It is contraindicated in pregnancy, lactating women, and patients with the severe renal and hepatic impairment. The adverse events are increased blood uric acid level, diarrhea, decreased neutrophil count, increased enzymes, SGOT, SGPT, psychiatric symptom. Drug is excreted in the sperm, hence contraception is recommended. The dose for the adult is 1800 mg BD on first day, followed by 800 mg BD up to 14 days. Written consent should be taken prior from the patient before administration. On the day 7 and 8 of the disease, patient is presented with a cytokine storm, which is caused by the colossal release of pro-inflammatory cytokines like IL-2, 6, 8 and tumor necrosis factor alpha, causing dysregulated hyperimmune response. It is presented as unremitting fever, cytopenias, hyperferritinemia, and presentation in the form of ARDS. The screening for this hyperinflammation is elevated ferritin level, ESR, C-reactive protein, liver enzymes, then triglyceride, bicytopenias, pancytopenia is there, and hepatosplenomegaly is there. How to treat the cytokine storm in COVID patient? Steroids and heparin can be beneficial in managing the cytokine storm. IL-6 inhibitors have been advised. The evidence regarding their use for cytokine storm is limited. The use of serine protease inhibitors such as alnistatin has been advised by some experts. Therapies such as high dose of vitamin C, JAK inhibitors, and neurokinin 1 receptor antagonists are still in research. Tocilizumab, the indication for tocilizumab is patient should be admitted in ICU, having the evidence of cytokine storm as described, ferritin level more than 3-fold rise, C-reactive protein more than 20 or rising, IL-6 more than 3-fold rise, preferred to those with IL-6 above 100. Third is rising oxygen requirement more than 6 liters per minute to maintain the saturation above 90. Persistent fever more than 101 degree and patient on HFNO or NIV. The drug should be contraindicated if the patient is having underlying bacterial infections, sepsis, multi-organ failure, shock, abnormal LFTs, transaminitis more than 5 times the normal, platelet less than 50,000, and immunocompromised status. The dose of tocilizumab is 5 to 6 mg per kg IV, that is approximately 400 mg, to be given in 100 ml normal saline over 1 hour. Patient should be pre-medicated with hydrocort and phenylephrine prior to tocilizumab. This is a Roche trial. They provides an update on the phase of COVACT trial. They have mentioned there is tocilizumab this trial did not meet any primary endpoint of improved clinical status in hospitalized patient with severe COVID-19 associated pneumonia. CARP protocol will be covered by the anesthesia people. So severe cases, criteria for admission of ICU, patients who are having the respiratory rate more than 25 breaths per minute, PaO2 less than 60 mg of mercury on room air, or SpO2 less than 85 on supplemental oxygen of 6 liters. Need for mechanical ventilation. Patient is confused, hypothermic. They are having thrombocytopenia less than 50,000 counts, uremia, multilobular infarcts, hypotension requiring fluid resuscitation, and need for vasopressors. This fast hugs bit is followed in ICU for better ICU care of patient. Then system involvement in COVID-19. Heart involvement. Cardiac injury is there during COVID-19. This is a type of injury, cardiac injury. Severe increase in myocardial demand is there, lead to type 2 myocardial infarction. Cytokine storm leads to plaque rupture, and hemodynamic decompensation leads to heart failure. Patient may have acute or fulminant myocarditis. There is an elevation of troponin levels in cardiac injury. The cardiovascular risk factor is more in diabetic and hypertension patient. The cardiac injury like ST segment elevation is there presenting as myopericarditis, decompensated heart failure, and cardiogenic shock requiring support. COVID-19 and diabetes. This is a slide showing the new onset hyperglycemia prevalence is as equal to pre-existing diabetes, and the mortality of newly diagnosed hyperglycemia is almost equal to the pre-existing diabetes. It is more than that. Mortality is more. If we control the blood sugar, well controlled blood sugar, they have a better survival than poorly controlled blood sugar. The oral hypoglycemic drugs like metformin, sulfonylurea, SGLT2 inhibitors, 5-glitazone and DPP4 inhibitors, they are not used in moderate to severe disease. Severe stress hyperglycemia at admission in moderate to severe disease, that is post meal more than 150 and pre-meal is more than 150 and post meal is more than 200. And it may be used, the oral hypoglycemic drugs is used in mild cases when there is a mild hyperglycemia if there is no contraindication. The oral hypoglycemic drugs, they are not used in moderate to severe because there is a risk of lactic acidosis, risk of hypoglycemia is there, increased risk of dehydration and euglycemic ketoacidosis, risk of fluid retention and edema, better drug for prescription at discharge in mild hyperglycemia. Patient who are already a diabetic and on OHA, in mild disease, no contraindication when blood sugar should be maintained below 180 and post meal is less than 250. DPP4 inhibitors, they are safe like vildagliptin and teneligliptin. Insulin therapy is recommended in moderate to severe COVID cases if there is no contraindication to the drugs. If the pre-meal is more than 180 and post-meal is more than 250, the bolus basal insulin to be given, regime is given. If the pre-meal is more than 300, post-meal more than 400, insulin infusion should be started. It is preferred. But oral hypoglycemic drugs can be given in mild cases, mild to moderate hyperglycemia if there is no contraindication. Pre-meal should be less than 180 milligram and post-meal between 180 to 250. DPP4 inhibitors are preferred, but best is insulin. COVID-19 and respiratory diseases. Angiotensin converting to expression in the small air epithelium, angiotensin 2 expression was significantly increased in COPD as compared with the non-smokers, but not in a healthy smokers. How do we know the difference between typical exacerbation or flare-up and symptoms of COVID-19? COVID-19 most common symptom is cough, fever and shortness of breath. If high fever is not a common symptom in COPD exacerbation. If you have a high fever along with the worsening of exacerbation, we should do RT-PCR. COVID-19 and kidney involvement. The virus itself infects the cell of the kidney. Kidney cells have receptors that enable the new coronavirus to attach to them, invade and make copies of itself, potentially damaging those tissues. Similar receptors are also found on the cells of lung and heart, where the other new coronavirus has been shown to cause the injury. Outcome of AKI in COVID and non-COVID patient is 56.9% versus 25% respectively. It affects the kidney, direct infection of the kidney, increased blood clotting, acute tubular necrosis with septic shock, cytokine storm affecting the kidneys. Most patients with COVID-19 related AKI who recover continue to have a low kidney function even after discharge from the hospital. And COVID-19 patient receiving dialysis, including those with ESRD, they have a similar chance for survival as those with the less severe disease or injury, and thus should be considered for ICU care. So, role of remdesivir in patient with AKI and chronic kidney disease. It has a limited duration of treatment, 5 to 10 days, relatively low concentration of cyclodextrin. It is a carrier that is used in IV preparation of remdesivir. Suggests that its benefit may outweigh the risk in selected patient when the eGFR is less than 30 ml per minute per 1.73 meters. Patients without underlying liver disease who are expected to undergo continuous or intermittent hemodialysis, or those with AKI expected to be transient, may be the best candidate to receive the remdesivir. Dialysis and CRRT should be effectively remove the cyclodextrin. COVID with liver disease, the overall death rate in a people with chronic liver disease is 39% after COVID-19 diagnosis. The most common cause of cirrhosis, viral hepatitis 22%, then NAC, then alcoholic liver disease. The remainder has other causes in combination. The 64% of the people with type 2 stage 3 cirrhosis died of as compared to 12.2% those without cirrhosis. So death is more common in patients with established cirrhosis with COVID-19. So what is a discharge policy? In a patient mild or pre-symptomatic, that is pre-symptomatic phase, discharge after 10 days of onset of symptoms, no fever for 3 days. So no RT-PCR is required before discharge. In moderate case, fever resolve within 3 days or oxygen saturation maintained without support. Discharge after 10 days of symptoms, absence of fever without antipyretics, resolution of breathlessness and no oxygen is required. If the patient has symptoms not resolved and demand of oxygen is continuous, discharge only after the resolution of clinical symptom, ability to maintain oxygen saturation for 3 consecutive days. For mild and moderate, no RT-PCR is required before discharge. But in severe cases, discharge only after clinical recovery, patient tested negative once by PCR after resolution of the symptoms. Thank you.